Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Circuit of the Americas. This is the oNiD Racing YouTube channel, and we are here for round number 2 of the oNiD Racing Multiclass World Cup. My name is David Russell, and I'm joined in the commentary box by the man who's doing all the wonderful stuff that makes these streams look good. Trinket to Task, good evening to you, good sir. How are you this evening?
I'm doing great. Just came over from a cold, so I'm feeling a bit better. Which is good, because otherwise you would have another person sat here right now.
Absolutely, yeah. And probably be doing the cameras myself, which, as I was saying to you beforehand, is normally the move that I tend to have to do. And it's quite a refreshing change of pace to have everything in front of me. And I can just sit here, I can twiddle my thumbs, and I can talk over what I'm sure is going to be a fantastic race this evening, because we've got night time in qualifying, night time in the race. 60 minutes is the duration for this one, same as it was at Watkins Glen last week. GT3 is qualifying at the moment. First in class at the moment is Zildzovic. Tuck Gibson just under, or just over half a tenth behind. And good evening to everybody in the chat as well. I'm going to try and remember everybody as I go through there. Mercy Caller Edition, Dutch, John Cheel, oNiD Racing, of course. Stream Elements, let's not forget them. Luke Sherlock, Apex Vest, and Collective World 24 is watching from my vacation in Italy. I mean, look.
That would be Bolan.
Certainly wouldn't mind. Yeah, that'd be very nice.
Oh yeah, I've not travelled much in the world, but I have gone to Italy, and it was beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely stunning. You cannot beat it. I would also love to go to this circuit as well, to be fair, because I've seen so many people, you know, you go on YouTube and you see people doing those like vlogs and stuff, and they're like, oh, I got paid to go to the F1 and they did all of this. And I see just what the atmosphere is like at COTA, like for the F1 at least. I'm sure it's the same for a lot of other racing series as well. It just looks amazing. I'm so jealous. Anyone who's been there.
I think for the Formula 1 tracks in America, I guess it would be COTA. I think Miami and Vegas would just be a bit too much.
Yeah, I feel like if you're going to go to either one of them, you could, like, I'd rather just go anytime. I think if you, I mean, like I say, I've not had the luxury, sadly, of being able to go to either of them, even when a Grand Prix's been on, let alone when it's not been on. But can you imagine? It would be absolutely manic. Like, see, they have been in France for the last week and now 3 days in Turin. Oh, how the other half live, and then back to France and Belgium. I mean, yeah, rubbing it in. I'm very jealous. I've got 3 weeks until I get to finally go on holiday for the first time since the pandemic, and I'm super duper excited. Can't wait. But
it hurts to think of the last time I left the country.
yeah, so the last time I left was the February before the pandemic, literally the month before, and I remember getting a text as I was going through the airport that said something on the lines of, this is the Polish government, please be aware that there is a virus going around, so please be like kind of mindful of what you're doing and where you are. It's a bit like, oh, okay, but it's a bit odd. I'm glad I'm leaving this country now. I'm hoping it's going to be better back in the UK. And then what, about 6 weeks later, you couldn't leave the house, which is great.
Yeah, I had recently moved into the place I am still living in, and just managed to find myself a job at the local co-op. And I think 1 week into working, it was lockdown. All the toilet roll was gone. And all the bread.
Oh God!
So
Is that because? Oh God!
I could not have started my job any sooner. If I was a bit later in finding a job, I would not have had a job.
Oh God! Yeah, because you'd wait. I suppose you'd have had to have found something you could have done online. I suppose, but even so, that would have been a lot of stress.
Going to London for New Year's Eve.
Mm.
Yeah, sure would be good. Probably very expensive.
Oh
Let's
God!
have a
Yeah.
look around the field. We've got Miles Dixon currently half a second up. Ooh,
Yeah,
I was
not
just
not
about to
surprising to see Miles going through. Ben P coming across the line. They did improve, yeah, not by a huge amount though. Still in 7th place. Interestingly, obviously with them having 15 minutes for GT3s, then 15 minutes for GT4s, obviously being a multi-class series, as we know, it's interesting to see the top 3 of the top 6 in the pit lane. We've got, at least 20 GT3s in the field. There's probably more down in the time tell. I just haven't set a lap time yet, but if I was in the position at the moment and I'd be interested to know what you would do as well. Would you run for the full 15 minutes and just get as many laps in as you can, or are you maybe doing a stint, going back in, getting everything kind of re-engaged, back in for another stint, or you just going kind of full beans? I feel like I'd go for the full 15 minutes and just ham in a load of laps.
Yeah, I try and not exert myself too much because qualifying stresses me out a lot. So I put in a few laps. If I feel like I've done as well as I know I can do, I would just sit back and wait for the rest of qualifying to go over. 1 or 2 positions is not going to end the world. But if I know I can do better, I will go back out and just push. Yeah. But being on that great lap, a lap of awesomeness, and then messing up one of the last few corners, it hurts.
Definitely something you can do here as well, with all of the many talks about the track limit penalties and warnings and stuff that you can get. As Jerome Jonga goes up into 5th place, that's an improvement of about half a second, puts him up into the top 5. Looking nice and close at the moment. What are we, about 1.1 seconds setting out the top 10. Johnny Seville in the lesser spotted Jaguar GT3 car, which is an interesting choice. Obviously, you and I spotted that earlier on. Of course, he's now driving for the LFM racing team. Used to be formerly of Pole Sim Sport and moved over to LFM, hence some of the changes on the pole side, which Miles will have been very much involved in. See what he's going to do as he comes through the last couple of corners.
I think he's
probably not going to put a lap time in yet because he's going very slowly into the final corner there.
Just preparing his next lap. Knowing Johnny Seville, I will expect him to start clawing some of that time away. Only just under 5 minutes to go.
Yeah, of course, yeah. 15 minutes is going to be the time where the GT4s are going to come out. Right in thinking that the GT2 will get to be able to finish the lap as long as they get across the line before the 15-minute timer comes up. So gives them a little bit of time. I suppose the risk of that is, though, that if you are in that position, again, something we were talking about before the stream started, you have that kind of gentleman's agreement, don't you, in the final sector. If you do that, you're going to want to try and get across before any GT4s come out, because otherwise there is that risk you run of potentially getting caught up in them kind of tripping over each other, for want of a better phrase, won't you, towards the back end of the lap.
Yeah. I either try and get out first or just wait.
Yeah, if you can get out quickly, 100%, as that is a very, very quick lap from Alen Zildzovic. Wait, I say it was half a second quicker, and then Miles Dixon has done exactly the same thing and gone within just under a tenth and a half behind him as well. That looks like, I think that's Zildzovic coming back out for another lap. So clearly thinks there's some time on the table, and I suppose it's a thing to consider as well. It's a plus 2 minute lap, so you've got now, if you're just coming out of the pits, you've got one flying lap really, haven't you? And then that's all you've got.
As long as you cross the line before 15 minutes, you do have another one. So I think you might just be able to squeeze one in.
Yeah,
but my
just
brain
about.
math not working too well.
Not about that mental arithmetic life on Sunday evening. I don't blame you whatsoever. There's a rain light on there, on the back of Adam Gardner's number 4 Ferrari. That is the iconic 787B livery, and that looks stunning.
Also, last round's winner.
Yes, absolutely right. Yeah, last round's pro winner, of course. A very good
Ashley
point.
Cooper snuck in 3rd place there, I believe, as well.
Yeah, third overall. He's leader of the AM class, of course, and 463. Good friend of mine, used to drive in a community that I normally am a part of. He's now driving for Pulse Sim Sport. Did actually have a chat with him. He has got a terrible habit of forgetting to change his engine map off the formation lap, because he obviously likes to try to save a bit of fuel. The amount of times I've seen him in a race, he used to drive in the Aston Martin lot where he'd leave it in map 8 and then wonder why he's really, really slow off the start. Loses a handful of positions, has to kind of work them back again. So hopefully not a repeat of that. But yeah, Adam Gardner taking the win last time round. Jerome Jongen taking second place in the GT3 Pro class, and then Daniel Tomlinson coming in the third place in there. He's currently P9 in qualifying as it stands. GT Am, Ash Coupland, the aforementioned, he won the class in the last round at Watkins Glen. Matt Holman was second, and then Noel Doige third. And then GT4s wise, Carlos Plaza, Peter Jelinek, and Scott Ticehurst were the top 3 in that one as well. Lots of new names for me, of course. I'm sure, Trinket, not so much the same for yourself, especially because you didn't skive off last weekend. I did have plans, I promise. I would have been here otherwise. I'm hoping you're going to be able to correct me if I'm wrong on some of these names. If not, I'm just going to say them with loads of confidence. And then if I am wrong, someone can come and tell me, and I will reflect it before next week's stream.
Yeah, I'm not the best to be trusted with names. I do know most of them. But one thing to bring up as well with the last minute left of GT3 is we have Jurgelis in the pits, who's not set a lap time, and Watson currently on an invalid lap. And these two have not set a lap time yet either, so they're going to be at the back of the grid. Jurgelis, I was going to say, yeah, certainly, but Watson has one last try if they can make it to the line. And where they are on track, I don't think they can.
No, I don't think they will, yeah.
Because they're on an invalid right now.
Yeah, I don't think there's any chance they're going to get round in 45 seconds to get down the back straight and then through the final sector. That's not going to happen. I wonder if, especially when they're going that slowly into what's that, turn 12, 20 turns to remember. So I normally like to commentate on those where you've got corner names. I've got my track map in front of me, and I've just got T1, 2, 3, 4 through 20, which is one of the downsides I feel of the newer circuits. Don't get me wrong, I'm quite a big fan of this one, despite its the many violations one can have with track limits. But I feel like a track needs named corners. Do you agree?
It definitely lends it to character. In terms of remembering where things are, having current turn names is useful. You know, numbers are good, but it doesn't really have character if you just say T19.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah.
So back into the pits there. Yeah.
Yeah, understandable. So yeah, it's going to be Watson and Jurgelis are going to be doing a last to first challenge. I expect Jurgelis will probably have a bit of form of that again. Someone I've seen racing on multiple occasions and is showing some pretty decent pace. As Coupland's coming through, that's the first sector. Slowing it down as you go through that kind of left-right section. I suppose it's kind of a la Maggots Beckett's to a certain extent, kind of going in full beans and slowing the car down as you can whilst keeping it within the track limits. He's got 4.5 tenths to gain to get anywhere near the pole position time at the moment of Zildzovic. Of course, we're not going to see any of the GT4s get anywhere near that. What we're thinking, we're looking at about a 2:16, I would say, is probably going to be around a decent time for them, you would think?
It's usually around about 10 seconds for most tracks. So yeah, that's spot on to 2:16.
2:16. Yeah, it's about right. I'm not going to say it's probably not spot on. I'm sure we'll probably see someone will come out and do a madness and get a very, very good lap time in. But we'll have to wait and see. I mean, not long till we can wait and see, because we can see. Well, I've actually got ACC open on my screen as well, and I can see cars leaving the pit lane for GT4. So not too long before we do get an idea as to how fast these GT4s can actually go.
Just the last few GT3s on track now. We've got Hutchison, 1.5 seconds up. That will jump them up a few places. Maybe even just one, because it's quite a gap between him and 20.
I was going to say, yeah, big old gap there. Can he improve? Does improve. Not by enough, though. 2 tenths off, so still going to be in P21. But I think that's probably one of those where it's going to be a bit of a confidence boost, I suppose, in terms of that, because at least you know you're closer to the pace on the guys ahead of you than you were beforehand, which is always a positive.
It depends on how they look at it. Yeah, I know I would be frustrated to improve by half. A second and a half and not move at all.
Yeah, that's a very good point as well. It depends on your
Evening, Ryan Davies.
on your reflection. Ryan Davies in the chat as well. Lovely to see. It's Peter Jelinek on his outlap at the moment in the 570S, as we were talking about before the stream. Trying to remember what the middle number was. We know it's 720 and 650 in the GT3s, but yeah, pretty sure it's the 570. He's following one of the Porsche GT4s. Then there's, I think that was Bruce, I believe, because I'm sure I saw a 35 on the windscreen.
It was indeed
John.
Bruce.
Yeah, Jovan Kovacic in the chat as well. Sorry I missed this. Love the track. See, people are with me in loving the track, which is always nice to see.
It's
Joe. Well, hopefully we'll see you next week.
It's not my least favourite track, but yeah, the track limits are just very harsh, and I'm not much of a fan of the third sector. The rest of the track is pretty great.
Yeah, no, I get that. I think it is one of those. I think if you can hook it together, I mean, this sounds like the most obvious thing in the world, but if you could hook it together, it's a very good track. It's a very fun one to run. Again, like you say, there is a lot of places where you can, even with the smallest bit of overhang, you get a track limit warning. It's very, very what's the word? Strict is the word I'm looking for in terms of it. So, especially like this corner is probably the only one I don't really like. Especially in a GT3 or a GT4 car, because you just feel like you want to go faster, but you just can't.
Yeah, there's different lines you can take through it as well, but if you're prepared for one line and drift off into another, you think, just go flat out, but nope, the car runs wide and you're gone.
Yeah,
who's this no voice?
Bit of a tire killer. Yeah, it is me. I'm David Raceroom. Nice to lovely. It is him. I'm assuming you mean me anyway. Yes, I was due to be in for the first round, however, had other stuff on. So Johnny kindly allowed me to take some time off to sort that out. But I was about to say I'll be here for every other round, but I'm going to let you all down before I even build myself up by saying I am actually on holiday in August. So won't be here for 2 rounds, unfortunately, but we'll be there for everything else. Knowing my luck, I'll miss the best ones.
Oh, you missed the best one.
I was going to say I've watched it back. Specifically watched the red flag incident, which, as I said to you earlier, was quite amusing because you two on the commentary last week were very almost uninterested to a certain extent. Kind of like, oh, there's been an accident.
There appears to have been
as you were
multiple cars involved.
Exactly. Yeah, this is it. Multiple cars involved. It sounded like, not necessarily the tone of voice, but the way the words that were used sounded like, you know, that the race director from the virtual Le Mans. It's got a really monotonous voice. It sounds like a really bad insult what I'm saying, and I really don't.
I absolutely want to channel his voice. That's
what it sounded
the
like.
Mood I wish to enforce if I were ever had any authority over a race. Is just jump into the voice chat and just, you've disappointed me.
I'm not angry, I'm disappointed. That's all you need. Johnny showed you mercy, you must be good then. Well, look, I suppose I'll let you guys decide if there is any quality that I bring to the table. Who knows? He didn't come to me knowing I had any qualities, so he just said, "Oh, you'll do. You've got a pulse and a voice." There we go.
And you're around and available and not racing.
Yeah, exactly. You're not racing.
Eduardo, that's his name.
You can speak. Oh, it is, isn't it? Yeah, I think even the way you said it sounded like him as well.
Eduardo.
Which is quite impressive. Yeah.
What did Sam miss last week? About 75% of the grid not making it to T1.
I would just go back and watch it.
I think 100% of the GT4 didn't either.
Yeah, it looked like it was utter. I mean, the one I did spot was the DuPont liveried car was all over the place. It was funny because I actually was watching it back, and I was doing that kind of, you know, you scroll through and you can see the little picture-in-picture, and it tells you what the it shows you like a little snippet of what's actually on the stream at the time. And I was doing that, and I saw them grid up, and then I saw them grid up again. I was like, that's odd. What's happened?
Yeah.
What's happened here?
The unfortunate thing about that is because it was a red flag and a session restart, there was no saved replay of that.
Oh no,
because
you're joking.
because the session didn't end or anything. There was no
Oh,
auto save of it. So unless someone on the grid hit Control M and saved the replay, it's gone
yeah.
forever. The only footage of it is whoever had an onboard and me missing half of it because I was watching the leader go around the corner.
I was going to say, yeah, because I watched, yeah, it was almost like I think that's why the level of kind of surprise was quite low, because you kind of just went back to it, didn't you? It wasn't like it had happened at the time. You kind of went back and went, oh.
I saw carnage happen, but then as soon as I came back to it, it was just a complete stoppage on track.
Carnage ensued. So we see Marco L as the Balfour Motorsport 570S. So you've got very, very sideways a couple of corners ago coming out of turn 14. So I remember to look at my track map to remind myself the corner numbers. That McLaren very, very side. I mean, it's not going to be the quickest line around. Dan Hearn currently pole position in the GT4 class by 1.8 tenths.
Yes,
he 1.8 seconds
a
rather.
Rapid boy. Both me and Sam were doing a GT4 series for the Tuesday League, which is now turning into the Tourenwagen Masters.
Yes.
Yeah, because I would do the qualifying and I would be getting very close to his times, but I'm pushing all out and I was in the Donetta. So one time at Paul Ricard, it didn't go so well.
I am awful in a GT4 car. I need downforce to be able to drive quickly. Give me anything like a P2, like a Formula 1 car, anything like that. Give me downforce, not a problem. As soon as I start to lose the downforce like this, I am so bad. We've got a few people in the team that I race in who are GT4 special. One of them, he's affectionately known as the slow car specialist, because the slower the car, the quicker he is, and it is
I find
eerily
that
accurate.
that's like me as well.
Yeah, he actually drives a Renault Clio on. He's in a very niche Welsh saloon sports car championship thing that I've had the pleasure of watching at Silverstone once, and he's very, very quick in the Clio, but gets into a GT3 car and sadly, I don't know what it is, just doesn't combine as well. Put him in a GT4, pure pace, ridiculous.
It really is surprising how different your racing ability shines through in different classes. You really need to perfect it one certain class, and you move to another one, and all of that hardwired experience and training is just like, oh no, where is the grip?
Yeah, why can't I do this anymore? It's always a fun one to see. Peter Jelinek second in class, so it's just done just under a second.
He's started improving on this lap, but is unfortunately invalidated earlier on. We've got Thorpe just coming down the straight now as well, currently 2.3 tenths, or not 2.3, 0.23 tenths up. No. The numbers.
Enough
2.5 tenths up.
So not enough to gain anywhere. Enough to kind of make P3 in the GT4 class more of his own possession, for want of a better phrase, but not. I mean, well, it's not going to be now, because that is, if that's not an invalid lap, then I don't know what is. Martin creating a slightly different racing line, it seemed, going into the turn 12. Kind of, would you call it a hairpin? It's more than a 90-degree angle, therefore I potentially refer to it as such.
Yeah, I guess you could call it that as well, but it definitely doesn't feel as much as a hairpin, because you kind of camber into it. Dip your wheel onto the inside and just hook around.
Saying that, I'm looking at the track map, and to be honest, I think when I've driven this track before, I don't think I've noticed that it's more than a 90-degree angle corner, because of exactly what you've just said. It's now that I see it on the track map and think, oh, it is more than 90 degrees. It doesn't feel like it, so no, I'm not calling it a hairpin anymore. I'm immediately retracting my statement.
It's just like that last corner as well. That feels like a 90-degree turn, but it's more than 90 degrees as well. Yeah,
it's probably 110 maybe. I don't know. This one definitely is a hairpin, the one that he's coming up to now, which is, I find, really, really difficult to get right, because it's that uphill braking point, and it's such a, like, you've got no knowledge of where the apex is, do you? So you can either completely miss it, you can either go probably about 3 meters inside of that little, because I'm sure there's a little cone on the, or not cone, but like a pole on the inside. I don't think I could probably need too much difficulty in counting how many times I've actually gotten it right.
I find yeah. I find that corner a lot of fun, a lot of great fun, especially when you're fighting, because that inside line on that corner is very strong. You can pretty much just point straight for the apex, dive on in, and the person you're racing alongside really can't do anything about it.
Yeah, I think generally, to be fair, I think because of the width of this track, it does give you a lot of points to overtake on. I think we've mentioned it already, especially in the GT4 class, but even much so in the GT3s as well. It gives you so much opportunity to run so many different lines. Like you can go deep into a corner, especially the one that we can see Carlos Plaza going through here in the final sector at the moment. Like you can take multiple different lines through it, which hopefully, he says, with wood being touched on the desk in front of me, will yield itself to a lot of overtaking in this race as we see Carlos Plaza come through the final corner. There we go. See, that is more like it.
Behind, yes.
That's what we want to see. Championship leader in the GT4 class, Carlos Plaza in the 124. Here's Sim Racing Esports car. That's a mouthful. What was that? With just over a tenth behind. So I always find it's difficult, especially when you put the GT4s out afterwards. I'm trying to do quick maths in terms of differentiating between the two, and I'm having to do it with already existing numbers, and I'm looking at it going, oh god, I don't know what to say. I can't figure it out.
I always want to see a Ginetta at the top. I love driving the Ginetta. It's such a fun and nimble GT4. If you're struggling driving a GT4, give the Ginetta a try. It's such a different kind of car.
I might have to, yeah, because I normally go for the two I've given some real serious thought to are the use words, David, come on, they're here somewhere. Genuinely struggling for words. Why am I struggling with this? The Aston Martin and the Mercedes. They're the two I typically tend to go for.
They are quite boaty.
Yeah, that's what I found, and that's what makes me generally don't really like the class, because I've driven the wrong cars, clearly. I have heard good things about the Ginetta, though. I must give it a try.
One GT4 that I did, it was a GT4 season, and I was in the Audi. And you may notice there are no Audis in this.
Yeah, there's no KTMs either,
good.
I don't think. The KTM and the Audis are those that, yeah, from what I've gathered, they're not particularly well liked. I'm also finding out that Carlos, I'm assuming, is affectionately known as Charlie, because if you see, we've got 962 Javier in the chat, who's saying, let's freaking go. Let's not forget the middle bit there. Pulse and Charlie from Tier Sim Racing, or TYR. I'll let you guys decide. Send it, Charlie. Okay, sorry. Good luck for all the gang. That's absolutely fine. Don't you worry, Javier. You have your people that you want to support. That is what this is all about. And good evening to Mourinho87 in the chat as well, who says, "Eyo," which as soon as I read it, I had to say it.
Yeah, there's a reference that I've never had anyone else get. Did anyone listen to BBC Radio 1 back in the day with what was his name? Chris
Moyles.
Chris Moyles, yes. And he did the parody albums.
Vaguely.
Yeah, there was.
I kind of caught the back end of Chris Moyles.
Yeah, he did a few parody albums, but in his first parody album there was a song. It was just about Jose Mourinho. Every time I see that name, I just think of the song. Go look it up.
I think I know the one you mean. I'm not even going to try and do it any form of justice because I know I won't. But I think I know which one you mean.
And as we're coming to the close of the qualifying, everyone else currently not on a lap but Vest. Currently 3/10 up on the final lap. The last person on track on a valid lap.
Yes, he's got to gain another 4 tenths. Got to gain 7 tenths in total to get past Ian Hall in front of him. So he's got a little bit of work to do, but he's got the best part of a minute left on the track, on the lap. You'd have thought. We'll have enough time with that max wait time in the top corner as well, so he'll have absolutely no problem getting around. As it stands, though, it looks like it's going to be Dan Hearn who's going to have the pole position in the GT4 class, barring an absolutely boss final sector from Ralph Vest.
He has improved quite a bit through those.
Ooh. See, this is where I wish...
Not massively, but yeah, definitely enough to move a position, I think, at this point, if he keeps it together.
That's what we like to see. Will he get enough to get past Thorpe as well? That's the question. I wonder if Jelinek, Plaza, Hearn... I mean, again, obviously you can see this data, I can't, but maybe a little bit out of depth. We'll see whether we can get that as he keeps it going through the final couple of corners, through turn 19, keeps it clean there, into the final corner. All eyes on Ralph Vest as he comes through the final corner, keeps it nice and clean and tidy, not too much on the wheel spin as he crosses the line. Doesn't improve enough. Oh dear. We had it set up. I really feel like I've done Ralph a dirty there because there was. I feel like we built that up so much, and then just didn't really kind of do it justice.
Yeah, well.
But there you go. Qualifying in the books. So what we've got then. So Alan Zildzovic is going to be on pole in the GT3 class. Dan Hearn going to be on pole in the GT4 class. Top drivers in class, of course, Dan Hearn, as we know, top driver in GT4. For those of you who've never seen this before, so if you look at the silver number boards on the left-hand side, they are your GT4 class cars. They've also got a little blue triangle in the bottom right-hand corner. The GT Am drivers are those including Alan Zildzovic and Ash Coupland and Simon Gibson at the top in the top 5. They are those with the red number boards, and then the GT3 Pros are the ones with the white number boards. So Miles Dixon, Leighton Austin, and so on and so forth. Worth noting, there is a pit window in this series. It's a 50-minute pit window, so it will come up 5 minutes into the race, and then it will finish 5 minutes before the end. And there is a minimum stop for fuel, but it has to be 25 seconds. Now, suppose, Trinket, the question comes in, because we're at a track like this, and obviously it's a lot of high tyre wear corners, you might add, is it worth, because you're only going to have to put another 5 seconds on, changing tyres as well? Would you do it?
It's very contextual, I would think. Depends on how your race has been going, what gaps you have around you, when you decide to go in. But I think I would take the risk and just take the fuel.
Interesting. I suppose, like you say, very much depends on how you start the race as well. Of course, one thing that I have definitely found now that we've moved on to this new patch since 1.9 was released by Kunos, is I am very, very bad at managing my tyres. And I'm like almost painfully bad, to the point where I did a 2.4-hour race at Suzuka last week, and I had ruined my rear tyres in the Ferrari within about 10 minutes of the first stint. And I was only going to pit for the one tyre change, so I had to drive for the next about an hour, kind of coming out of every corner, just having to kind of mitigate a little slide every now and again. I'm just there thinking, oh, for goodness sake. If I'd just been a little bit more cautious at the start, I would have got through. But yeah, I suppose it depends on how your race goes.
Yeah, we've all made a bit of quite a few silly mistakes. So one thing I've also noticed is if you look at the top 23 on the standings right now, there are only 2 pre-1.9 cars.
What are we looking at? So it's the Jag and the Mercedes?
Jag and the BMW. Because the Mercedes, yes, has been around. It's the 2020 version, but it did get a change up with 1.9. It's
yes,
it's basically a different version of the car.
Absolutely.
And, top 7, all but 1 are Ferraris.
Yeah, Mike Brown, pit lane start for him. Didn't click drive in time. Deary me. I did notice in the chat as well that the drivers who didn't set a lap time, so that would be Jurgelis and Jack Watson, sorry, they will have to start from the pit lane as well.
Yes.
Aidan Oak. I presume Aidan's not going to start from the pit lane just simply because he's in the GT4. So he's not going to make as much of a difference. I suppose the steward in me is thinking sensible, start the GT3s from the pit lane because you know they're just going to ruin everyone's day if that goes wrong.
Especially turn 1 here at COTA. They're so much better brakes, so much better speed. It's going to be quite messy up there, I would think.
100% as Aidan Oak has decided.
Stops. We also do have Rhinos in the pits as well. I'm not sure if they set a lap time, but they are in 39th. Move back up to the leader, going around to the S's. I guess you would call these the S's if they had names.
I think you would, yeah. I think you'd affectionately know them as the S's. I've just seen, what's that? Is that 3 Pulse Sim Sport Ferraris? If you're Zildzovic in this position, you're feeling a little bit intimidated, aren't you? Looking at all 3 of them just staring you down from your rear view mirror.
I would be feeling a bit cocky.
You're going to be looking at the rear view mirror going, no.
I've told this story before, I think, but I outqualified a Pulse Sim Sport Am who was in a GT3 and I was in a GT4. The
Nice.
discourse in the text chat in Discord was rather amusing.
I can imagine. That's brilliant. You think they're just things you love to see.
Don't you always? There's a Havner in chat says, hopefully there's not a big one. Yes, let's not make it a 2 for 2.
Yes. Yeah, if we can ideally refrain from a rather big incident, ladies and gentlemen, in the server at the moment, if any of you are watching, I don't understand how people do that, by the way. I've seen plenty of people. I actually had someone, I did a stream last week, who actually messaged in the chat and said, can you turn up your mic volume? I can't hear you from in the car. And I very politely went, no, because it's as loud as I'm willing to put it without damaging people with headphones in. And 2, just watch it back. Why are you watching the stream when you're driving? I don't understand why you do that.
I sometimes have the stream on while I'm driving.
Oh, baffling. It tells you, confirming anyone without a valid lap time was asked to start from the pit. There you go. So
that would be
I imagine
Daniel Lindblom.
See, you know all of these names. I'm trying to remember all of them, and I'm not going to remember all of them. Impressive that he's managed to do that especially from the Maserati of all places. Yeah, so Mike Brown, Martin Reinhardt, Carlos Jurgelis, and Jack Watson all started with the pit. I thought Aidan Oak would have done the same, which is why he was stopped on the grid, but looks like he's managed to get himself back up to speed. Keeping a keen eye on that
I think he
yellow
might have
bar.
just been asking whether he's also included in the pit start or not.
Yes, very, very possibly. It's a very, very good point.
The 2 Maseratis next to each other on the grid, though. That's just that's nice to see.
Is that not what you'd call a cursed image?
I mean, yeah, you got the 2 Mercedes next to each other, 2 of the Camaros next to each other, 2 Porsches next to each other, but 2 other Porsches spread out.
It's a very, very Noah's Ark style. What am I trying to say? Use words. Grid lineup. That's what we're looking for. As we can see, the cars getting ready to kick things off. Alan Zildzewicz, sorry, and Miles Dixon alongside each other. Am versus Pro going into the first corner, both in Ferraris. I don't think that Miles Dixon's got his lights on, but here we are with green, and Mick Dixon does get the jump off the start. He immediately cuts across as Jaguar Johnny Seville coming up the inside as well. They go into turn 1. Zildzewicz gets a very wide line contact between Coupland and Austin there. It looks like a little bit of a spin. Oh, there's a spin from McLaren there. That is Simon Gibson, who's been spun round in the wall. Worst possible start for him, of course. Just about managed to spin it around. Looks like the rest of the grid trinket did get away cleanly as they go through the S's for the first time.
I'm trying to click a car, but the grid's moving around so quickly I can't click on it. But there's a yellow flag with Norman Bruce and Arias. Oh yeah, that's just them coming out of the pits. Okay.
Yes. So yeah, what's that? Messrs Jurgelis, Oak, Watson, and Reinhardt, and Bruce all coming out of the pit lane by the looks of it. Yeah, so chance to go. There you go. There are the lights for Miles Dixon. He finally decides he wants to turn them on as he comes through in first place through the first half of the lap, through turn 11 and onto that back straight. Zildzewicz going to be looking to put some pressure on. He's now in a very bottom heavy Pulse SimSport sandwich because he's got Dixon ahead and he's got Coupland and Austin behind him. Fortunately for him, though, he has got a little bit of a gap back to Coupland behind, so gives him a chance to maybe make the move. He's going to look for the move down into turn 12. He is not going to hold on for the lap. It's early doors, of course, so it probably wouldn't be the smartest move in the world, you would think, to go for a big send into the first major braking point of the first lap, would you?
You got to play it safe early on. But speaking of playing it safe, Johnny Seville. Oh, I think Zildzewicz has just had a slight disconnect there. He
I was going to say.
And came back. But as I was saying, Seville not playing it safely. You saw him go super on that inside there, and he's moved up from 9th to 6th now, and he's in a Ferrari sandwich. A very bread-heavy sandwich.
A very there's certainly a top heavy. Certainly a lot on the top side of the sandwich for sure. We've got 5 ahead of him, 2 behind him. There's a Porsche in there for good measure, and then Cameron rounding out the top 10 at the moment. It's been nice and clean, apart from that move, that little kind of tip round on Tut Simons on the first corner. Other than that, though, to be fair, it's been relatively clean and tidy through the first lap. Everyone seeming to be getting through as they need to. There is, sorry, Seven Tuck Tips. I don't know where I've got Simon from. I've got a terrible habit of doing this. Those of you watching, if you start watching more and more, you'll soon realise this. I like to make up names because I think they sound better, clearly. There you can see Seven trying to make some moves early doors, getting through the GT4. That's Martin Thorpe, I believe. He's just gone past. He's got Jelinek just in behind him. Plaza getting off the line ahead of Dan Hearn as well. So change for the lead in the GT4 class. Not what Dan would have wanted. Of course, he was down in, I think he was P6 from the standings after the last race, as Shahabi takes the fastest lap off the start, which in the grand scheme of things, it really means absolutely nothing, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think for the GT3s, it's just basically... Oh, as Jongen has a little tap in Seville there. But makes it around. He's kind of squeezed off a little bit there, but just got to let off and get back in.
Yeah, is he going to try and make it 3 wide down the back straight? Yeah, still pointing in the right direction. I'm hoping he's not going to try and force it. Whoa, goodness me. This is getting very spicy.
There's a lot going on, and I forgot what I was talking about.
Oh, it's close. Oh, a bit of a nudge. Oh, dearie me. Is that I think it's Chatbird who's got caught up in that one. He's the car who's been fully spun around. Ben P in the McLaren, the number 12 car, he's been spun around as well. Back
going to get a quick
the Armco barrier for
that,
good measure.
Get that on board.
He's not. Oh, there it is. It's that 77 McLaren. I don't know who that was.
I believe that was Tomlinson. He's quite proud of his Haribo livery.
It looks really nice, to be fair. I think, am I seeing Golden Bear vibes from that one, I believe? I think it's the Golden Bears one anyway. But yeah, that was unfortunate for Ben P because there was really very little he could have done. He was going through the right line in the grand scheme of things, and then all of a sudden he's got the Haribo man, or one of the Golden Bears, just in his face, which is not what you want. As Sean Hunt is, for some reason, off the outside of turn 19. We'll see if we can see what's happened here. As he had a bit of a nudge up the inside. Oh, 2 into 1. There you go. Spin them both around.
McLaren stepped on the brake there and managed to avoid that.
Did a really good job of not collecting anyone else there. Both of them, in fairness. I think that was, I don't know who that was. Was it Tuck Gibson who maybe got caught up in that as well? Did you see? Oh, Samuel Page spun around the owners Racing Stronger machine as well. That Aston Martin are going to be right back down in the GT4 pack now as well. You can see Jurgelis going through. Good to see some sense and sensibility of not deciding to try and spin the car around with everyone else on track, though. I'd quite like to see that.
It's quite the perilous spot to be in. There's really not a lot you can do except just reverse down the track, but that's probably even worse.
Yeah, exactly. Comments from the chat. Was that a zoo bump on the rear? I think it was, to be completely fair. For those of you who haven't watched Formula 1 from this afternoon, you won't know. You might not know what that means. If you have, then yes, it was very... fantastic! Yeah, it was very a la Bottas from 2021. So being in the same team now, I wonder if they've started taking hints and suggestions from each other as to how best to ski ball the grid into the first corner, because I think that was the one thing that we kind of needed in that race, because I don't know if you watched it as well, but I found it rather dry.
Yes, unfortunately with the broadcasting rights being exclusive to Sky Sports, I cannot afford it.
That's fair enough. I am one of those people. Oh, there's a big move up the inside from, I think that is Deutsch, trying to go up the inside there of David Hutchison in the very nice 7-Up Yoshi racing car. I'm seeing some very good liveries this evening. Very good work from everybody involved. I am one of those people who piggybacks on someone else's Sky account. I don't know if you saw it, but they were doing the they had kids on for the broadcast on the main Sky, like the Sky Showcase channel. So here we see this is it's spun round.
Just a slight tap there.
Yeah, a little bit of an innocuous move, we would say.
Sorry,
yeah,
just the message from Ryan J. Smith in the chat.
Maybe they needed that big pilot from last week here again. They're having it still all over the shop. Goodness me. Track limit warning already.
Wow.
Goodness
this
me.
Early on.
So who's that? Well, that's car number 10.
The Hutchinson.
It is Hutchinson. Oh my goodness me. That is not what you want to see. Oh yeah, sorry. I saw Ben P in the pits, and I immediately assumed that was him. I was getting very confused, going, why has number 12 got in the pits when it should be number 10? But no,
let's have a
you're
quick
absolutely
check
right.
up on the lead fight.
Yeah, it's still pretty close.
Very much on their own over there.
Yeah, Cooper has dropped off, so you've got a lot of pressure from Austin in behind. In fact, it looks like Austin might be going at the inside. Of course, worth mentioning they are teammates, as we've probably seen. There's another drive-through for Alex Chatburn. So he is going to be dropping down the order as well. It's not too bad of a pit lane here, to be fair, is it? Obviously, nobody wants a drive-through penalty at any point in any race, but it could be worse. It could be a Spa, for example, or a Suzuka. Oh, not Suzuka. What's the other? Valencia. No, an Indianapolis is the one I was looking for.
Yeah, that's.
I think of. There's worse tracks to get a drive-through penalty.
It's more reminiscent of Indianapolis in being it's just slow down the whole straight, but at least it's a shorter straight than Indy.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's definitely not the best place to get it either.
I commentated on a race at Indy last week and was talking about was trying to fill for the best part of about a minute while they all left the pit lane for qualifying and completely forgot how long the exit was. And I'm there thinking, right, they'll go in a minute, and this just keep going.
Yeah, the line
part of me
is
wondered,
so far late. Like it could have gone so much earlier, but no.
I mean, to be fair, when you've got that giant brick wall on one side, I suppose it's probably sensible not to do it too early. But you kind of sit there thinking, oh God, like come on, especially when you're in the car as well. As that's Colin Cameron off to the inside. Of course, one of your liveries, as you mentioned before, we were chatting earlier. Maybe not in the state you might want to see it in. Let's see what's happened here as they come through the triple right-hander. Oh, a bit of a nudge there from Hutchinson.
Keeps it out of the wall though. Very good.
Yeah. At least the front of the livery is going to be unscathed. Might be a little bump on the rear quarter panel on the left-hand side, as you can see Chatburn and Hutchison both coming in to serve their drive-through penalty. Tomlinson,
how close they are together.
Very close together. I mean, where is Aidan Chatburn going? See, I called him Alex Chatburn then. See, you know what I mean? Just making it up as I go along.
Oh yeah, my brain auto-fills in first names sometimes. It's a bit of a problem as well.
Exactly. The benefit, I suppose, is I'm pretty sure the broadcaster we're using has the first name as well, and so is what I'm using in the back end for me. But I have to hover over them, and I'm not going to hover over every single one to find them because that is just far too much hassle. As we can see, Carlos Plaza getting a little bit of a gap. See, both his drive-throughs been cleared. He's got 2 seconds pretty much back to Dan Hearn behind us. Oh, that's not going to be helpful for him. Fedoni in the GT4, he's in the first of the Chevys. The 61 car, he's serving his pit stop early doors. We've got 5 minutes into the pit window. We've seen a few people serve their stop already. Wanderings in the chat where Mr. Bain is. I would always ask myself that question.
Yeah,
we need to start the hashtag Find Stevie.
I think they've split Davey between Hutchison and Chatburn. Getting a drive-through in the first 5 minutes of the race. That's very much him.
Very much taking away the plaudits of Mr. Bain. And his
3 wide down the straight here.
Myriad of drive-throughs. There you go. Yeah, we all go down this. We've got Hunt, we've got Gibson, we've got Doige in there as well. Somehow they've managed to get through there unscathed. I'm not really sure how they've managed to do it. They've got
Still more corners to go
in the background. Good as well. Goodness me. I mean, this is what you want to see, to be fair, isn't it? Oh, you see, there's the different lines they can take going into turn 15 now. Hunt's going to be around the outside. He's going to try to switch back. He's not. Oh, he gets pushed out wide. It's going to be a potential warning for him there, and that's going to give Tuck Gibson the chance to get back up the inside. Fantastic driving from these guys. It's one of those, I think normally you kind of come to expect incidents to happen, but that was really clean and tidy racing. I mean, look at the split times on the timing tower. There's less than a tenth between 4 of them, for goodness sake.
This is absolutely what you want to see in this kind of racing, and this is what we all strive for, as they swap positions there as well.
Yeah, there you can see the BMW of, I think it's Shimoes going up the outside into the final corner as well. He's alongside, I think that's Girton in the Ferrari. As they go up into turn 1, Doige isn't going to try and make the move, and it looks like Hunt's going to not try and make the move. But there you go, Shimoes trying to go around the outside of turn 1. That's going to be an interesting move. Oh, catches the sausage curb by the looks of it, and just loses the back end, and as a result can't hold on to the position. And somehow we've managed to get through the best part of the back half of the lap, and they're still all pointing in the right direction, which is quite impressive.
Yeah,
although not all of them driving on the track by the looks of it.
Yeah, that's one great thing about the BMW is it really does handle the bumps quite well. So as he ran wide onto those the sausage curbs after turn 1, they're probably one of the least aggressive on the track. So because you're going quite slow, you can really ride on them if your car lets you. So he got lucky with that, and he even got the position from it.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like Tuck Gibson got the position off of Doige as well in the mixture of that, and he's pulled a gap very quickly indeed. which is exactly what he'll have wanted to do. Hunt is falling back into the clutches of the BMW of Shimoris. As we can see, the gap for the GT4 class lead at the moment is closed again. Of course, probably courtesy of Hutchison and Chatburn coming out of the pit lane right in front of Carlos Plaza. It's a second the gap at the moment. You see Ralph Vest putting Aidan Oak under a bit of pressure. In fact, no, he's not. He's actually putting Simon Page under a bit of pressure in the GT3 Aston Martin, which is something I never thought I'd say. Despite
the timing sheet's a bit confused because it says he's less than a second behind Oak, but it's not right.
No, he's not. There is Oak just ahead of Page. There you go. And this is the battle for third in class in the GT4. So this is Jelinek against Thor. That McLaren, one of the in fact, to be fair, I'd say the BMW and the McLaren probably two of the faster GT4s in a straight line. See whether Jelinek wants to make a move up the inside. They've got to be careful of Jack Watson in the background as well in the GT3. Or should I mean, to be fair, it's probably up to Watson to be careful of them, I suppose, as they come into the kind of the infield section, for want of a better phrase, into the final sector of the lap. It looks like Thorpe is going to hold on to this position for at least a few more corners, you would expect, as Jack Watson just tries to look up the inside. He's probably thinking as well, he's got Simon Page behind him, that he's going to want to try and keep some gap on as well. So he's got to be a little bit careful in terms of how he manages this, I would say. As I correct myself, Samuel Page, not Simon Page. See? Third time in the space of, 5 minutes? He'd start reading names.
I didn't even pick up on that either. See, I know it's Sam Page. You say it wrong, my brain does not autofill.
Does not compute. So you see Sergei Filenko putting the pressure on Cameron ahead in the Sky Tempesta Racer machine. Of course, it's not a battle for class position, so he's not going to make a difference in terms of the absolute driver standings in this one, but will be nice to get past a pro car, I'm sure. And, primarily put himself a car in between himself and the rapidly approaching Seddon Tuck Gibson in 14th place, because he is rather quick indeed at the moment, is Tuck Gibson, because he's dropped Deutsch completely, who is almost falling back into the clutches of Gertz and Simoris and Hunt behind. So
and yes, as well as Sergei Filenko, he's shown a. I was about to compliment him as he was about to murder my friend. But yeah, he showed a marked improvement in his pace, as he originally was a oNiD AM driver and is now up to a Rhinos Motorsports driver officially as a team driver. And he's really shown waves. He's a lot quicker, but still needs to work on a bit of cleansiness.
Yeah, try not to do the old Zhou nerf, which very did.
I will have to watch the highlights after this then.
That is probably the only bit of action that happened in that entire race, to be completely honest with you. As we say, good evening to Brendan Rooney in the chat. There's a name I recognise.
And it's just a name, so yes, I recognise that too.
Exactly, yeah, it's a name that you recognise because it is just a name. Is Rainer Ressar putting the pressure on Alex Shahabi in the Mercedes? Porsche going to be pretty rapid through this first sector, you would think, being pretty good. I was about to say that, as he just gets a little dip onto the grass, knocks the cone for good measure, and is going to lose all of the time that he's been gaining there, just courtesy of one little wrong move. Shows you how difficult that Porsche can be to handle there. That lift-off oversteer is very, very difficult to tame if you don't get onto it quick enough.
And I'll be driving it on Tuesday. It'll be my first time driving it for a season, and boy, it's going to be an interesting one. A bit of a GT4 three-way here.
I wish you luck. I mean, there's words I never thought I'd hear this evening, a GT4 three-way, but I'm here for it. Who have we got in the background as well? That's Ben P in the background as well. He's served his pit stop. He is the fastest, or the highest of the running cars to have served that mandatory fuel pit stop. So whether he has pre-planned that, whether he's done it based on circumstances, will remain to be seen. And Elvin Blomqvist is trying to put the pressure on Luke Sherlock, who I have noticed is in the chat, so good to see he's not continuing to be in said chat, as Ben P gets past Ian Hall and starts to form a little bit of a gap. So he goes, hopefully, I mean, he's going to be looking here to get past both of these guys before the first corner, which he will, which is arguably more important for the GT4s than it will be for him, won't it? Because these guys are going to want to try and keep as far out of these other classes as possible to see if they can just have their own battle at the moment.
Yeah, just letting through the GT3 is very important, but you don't want to compromise on your own race. And the GT3s need to know that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a tough one, to be fair, isn't it? Because I've said this multiple times in previous broadcasts I've done, but I think the art of being a good GT4 driver is not necessarily just being quick. It's knowing how to minimise the disturbance in your race as a result of faster traffic. It definitely in a multi-class, obviously, but if you can, it's not even the timing of it, because you can't time when a GT3 car is going to come past you, but just running as predictably and as cleanly and as close to your own line as possible is the difference between someone ultimately winning in that class and finishing 4th or 5th and 20 seconds down the road. As we see Jeroen Jongen in the pits, first of the higher running cars, I suppose you call them, to serve their mandatory pit stop. Sean Hunt and Shimois going for it, battle. Oh, Hammer Thomas! Oh, I don't know if there was contact there. There was definitely contact with the other 3 cars. I'm
just going to get a quick replay of Deutschland.
Yeah,
I think he lost it at turn 1.
Yeah, he's lost it all on his own, hasn't he? I think he's just locked up the rears, got a bit too deep. Yeah, lots of rears there. And yeah, no, that is Hunt losing it all on his own. And Shimois really had nothing he could have done there, because, I mean, as soon as he went into there, he was basically just always going to understeer into that McLaren that was beached on the corner. And then what that's all done is that's benefited Ollie Knowles, because he's managed to get a couple of positions out of it as well.
Yeah, it's quite a blind corner, so coming up onto that scene would have been quite a shock. But he managed well in avoiding most of a larger carnage, let's just say. But
Yeah,
for Ollie Knowles, it was...
Ooh!
And,
Again.
things keep happening, and then I get distracted.
all getting very spicy. I think Javier's he's made the point very, very aptly in the chat. Well, bonk.
Bruh.
Yeah, and bruh.
Bruh.
And evening to Ash Hill in the chat as well, or weavening as he originally put. I actually prefer weavening personally. I think that sounds like something that needs to start happening a bit more. Jack Watson making his way through the GT4s, still a little bit further off I suppose the real backpack. Samuel Page is 2 seconds behind him, so there's that GT4, and then that is him, Sam Page, the second of those lights in the background, as Jack Watson goes up the inside of Carlos Plaza. This is something, again, that Carlos has to be a little bit careful of. Oh, just have to jump on the brakes a little bit there.
And you can see the Zenetta flashing its lights, and I think it's the slowest flashing lights of any of the cars in ACC. You can flash faster that with your own hand.
I was going to say, I thought he was turning his lights on and off. Just like, you do like a sarcastic slow clap. It felt like that with lights.
That's just the Dunetta. And then you've got the polar opposite of the... Oh, and Sam Page has missed the corner.
Gotta love that British engineering.
I clicked on a different car.
As well. A different car that was also off the track.
Just taking the advertising boards with you as a statement.
That looks like the kind of thing you would do in a game of Mario Kart. He's left a brake marker board on the inside of that racing line. So I wonder if someone's going to drive over it and just have a really unprompted spin. See Alex Shahabi. Very amusing indeed. Shahabi looking at the back of the Jaguar of Seville. That is a very different light cluster to any other car in this series on the Jag. It just shows you just how old it is. It's probably got like school non-halogen lights, I would have thought. LED lights, because it looks like they are. It just looks like a very, very old school GT3 car, which I quite like, to be fair.
Feels like playing iRacing during GT3 races, because the field of the spread of the age of cars is quite amusing at times.
Yeah, when you see someone come out in the MP4-12C,
yes,
you think, is that really a good move? You look at all of the I've done a few endurance races. You look at the bot they do beforehand, don't you? You think like, that's never going to ever need any fuel or weight restrictions, is it? Because it just isn't quick.
I think I remember doing the Bathurst 12-hour, and I think the McLaren was the fastest car. So it was a very interesting race of McLarens up at the front for qualifying and such, and then were gone after the first hour because they were terrible to drive there.
Right.
We were in the Lambo, so...
Oh, yeah. We did it this year. We were in the BMW this year, the M4.
Yeah, I've only got the 2 GT3s.
Yeah, I think I've got 3 for some. No, I've got 4. Goodness me, what's wrong with me? I've got the BMW, the Porsche, the Ferrari, and the Mercedes.
Yeah, just the
what
Lambo.
What was I thinking?
The Lambo and the Merc.
It's
one
two
on
good
the screen
choices,
right
to
now.
be fair. Two good choices
Speaking
indeed.
of,
You can see these guys
all
really struggling.
Dixon.
Yeah, I was going to say, we saw the two GT3s up in Seville and Shahabi struggling for getting past GT4s. Oh, look, Dixon goes to the defensive into turn 12. Zildzovic just elects to fight another day. I mean, I don't know whether there's been any kind of mishap or incident for Dixon. Certainly can't see anything on the last lap around. We'll see what the lap times are for this tour. But yeah, Zildzovic gained the best part of a second and a half in the space of a lap. So you'd assume there's been some sort of incident for Dixon.
Maybe just a bit of a slide or a bit of traffic. It's hard to tell without going back.
Yeah, we'll get an idea from the lap time in a minute, I suppose.
I don't think he's had any collision incident, because I think that 1.5 second gap would have been 1.5 seconds the other way if it was a crash.
Yeah, exactly. Still pointing in the right direction, which is the important thing. Yeah, so 209.3 on the last lap, so very much off the pace to what he would do. I mean, Zildzovic is the fastest man in the session at the moment. The 206 flat is his fastest lap time. So he's certainly got the pace. He's one of those people that, I mean, you and I were talking about it, I think, before the broadcast went live, about the fact that there's going to be some reclassification of classes sort of midway through the season. He's certainly showing pro tendencies, at least in this race.
Yeah. Not absolutely certain on whether that will happen or not, but I believe it might. But they are 7 seconds ahead of Lane Austin in third place. They are having their own little race now.
Yeah, they've certainly pulled away, haven't they? I mean, and then you've got Coupland, but he's 3 seconds back. He's actually under a bit of pressure from Adam Gardner in P5. You can see it on your screen now, and that's 787B Remnant Racing Ferrari. Top 5, all for Ferraris, as we mentioned. We go all the way back to the oldest on the track at the moment, which is that Jag of Johnny Seville. Yeah, like I say, driving for low fuel motorsports now. First time I've seen anyone actually drive for them, which is quite interesting. Couldn't help but notice no livery for the Jag though. So, I mean, it might even be that
there is an LFM.
I was going to say I don't even know if there is. No, I don't even know if there's a wireframe for the Jag, let alone a livery for it. I've never even gone anywhere near it. I don't think it's definitely not one I've got downloaded. I'm sure of it. So I don't think I've ever had anyone come to me and request, "Oh, can you do me a design for the Jag, please?" I think to myself.
Currently, my long-term objective. Wow, that's a mouthful. To get a livery design of my personal theme design on every car in the game.
Nice.
I'm currently 5 in. There's a lot more to go.
Oh god, yeah, there's a lot, especially when you take into account all the additional cars, like you said, the ones that aren't driven anymore, the old versions of all the cars they have, and all that sort of stuff. You're gonna be a busy boy. Zildzovic pits from P2.
Does indeed. Getting very close to Dixon, but not getting away through. We're about halfway through the race, so just getting out of the way and pitting now just seems like the smart move.
Yeah, exactly. I think it makes sense. You know that you've got the pace on him. You'd potentially think, so we see Johnny Seville going a little bit, well, I'm going to find out what happened here. He's been caught up with the GT4? Oh,
yes,
he has been. That is communication gone awry. I mean, fair play to the little McLaren GT4 for not losing it entirely, but Johnny, I'm sure, will be a little bit annoyed at that. I think is probably fair, as we can see Seddon Tuck Gibson pits from P11 as well. I mean, Zildzovic is the one that we want to keep an eye on, really, isn't he? Because he's the first of the real top runners to pit, so that will give us a better idea and a better picture as to where the likes of Jongen and Ben P will actually come out in the grand scheme, because see, they've already pitted quite a while ago, as there we can see Zildzovic leaving the pit lane now.
Yes, the very not useful static cam there. See Adam Gardner and
never the best.
Coupland still fighting each other.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's necessarily impacted their lap times yet. I mean, actually, to be fair, they were on 208s on the last lap. I think that's more to do with the fact that Ash isn't necessarily as quick as I think he probably would be at this stage, you'd think. As Adam Gardner looks to the inside under braking, he's going to have about enough, is he? No, he's not. Of course, both in the same car, it's going to be a little bit difficult to actually have some sort of differential between them, apart from whatever the setup is. So Coupland just about managing that at the moment. He's got 5 seconds up the road to Austin, knowing the Pulse team, they will have, I would imagine, some sort of engineer of a description who is just in their ears, just kind of giving them a bit of a picture that here's where you are, here's what happens if you pit, this sort of thing. Make sure you can kind of go for this sort of lap time and all that sort of fun stuff as well. They're a very slick outfit. Those guys, as your friend here, Colin Cameron, has been overtaken by Sergei Folenko. We didn't quite see that, unfortunately, but
still keeping it together, still pretty close in pace.
Still going
fighting.
round.
Still racing.
Still going round, as they say. Still going round and round in circles, as my other half would say. She's not necessarily up to code with the beauty of racing, be it real life or sim, up until this point, sadly. We'll get there.
Just switching over to Samoa's because I saw him jumping down the order, but it's just because he was coming out of the pits. But I almost just saw that Porsche in front, which I believe is Dan Hearn, and nearly clobbered the 787 Ferrari of Gardner.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think that is Hearn. I think you're absolutely right. There's Jürgelis in the background as well. He has pitted as well, so Jürgelis serving his mandatory pit stop.
I can see the GT3s now are mixed in more with the GT4 field who haven't stopped yet as well.
Yeah, this is where I feel your pit stop timing needs to be spot on, and it's very difficult to judge, especially when you're just in the sim on your own and you've not really got the ability for someone to. Whoa, dearie me! Whoa, that is not the line for Gabriel Chameau's there. Not quite the way you want to be going into that corner. He actually did a pretty good job to only collect Jürgelis ever so slightly. I mean, look at how late he brakes. Yeah. That is the smallest of gaps. Do you know what it reminds me of? Did you see, I can't remember what year it was either last year or the year before, when there was that clip from Valentino Rossi in MotoGP, and he was coming up the hill at the Austrian Grand Prix, and he went into turn 3, the one at the top of the hill, and all of a sudden you just see a bike just appear in front of him. It was exactly like that if you'd have done the onboard from Jürgelis' car. That was spicy.
Yeah. As again, you can see Folenko and Cameron have traded places again. These two are having a great little fight together.
Yeah, absolutely. It's lovely to see a nice little battle between these two guys. Clearly very similar on pace, which is always what you want. I always find it was one of these. I'm always that person. I'm like the Dan Tomlinson of the group in here, because I will always find myself in a pack of absolutely nothing. No matter how quick or slow I am, I always find myself in just a nothingness, like a purgatory on track. I never find myself in a battle, and I always want to be in one.
Yeah, I often find myself in that as well. You could be high up the grid, middle of the grid, back of the grid, but just always just on your own, just going in circles.
Yeah, ends up losing everybody. You see Dixon, Austin, Shahabi, Ressar and Tomlinson all in the pit, so Cooper and Gardner will promote themselves up to the top 2 now. So that is the battle lead, although Cooper has just about managed to gain a little bit of time on Gardner behind. It actually pretty much all within the last lap. He was 9/10 of a second quicker on that tour. This is your net P2, remember. This is the one we have to keep an eye on, isn't it? Because we've got Miles Dixon, who has served his pit stop. You can see by that green block on the right-hand side of this number. He's out of the pits, and it looks to me, Tricky, like he looks like he's got quite a bit of time if he's already exited the pit lane.
Yeah, we just have to see where he is. Just down there, I think.
I think you're right. I think that is him. Yeah, so he's just come out ahead.
Yep, that is.
So he's gained.
About
2
2 seconds, I think.
Yeah, gained a little bit of time then. We'll get a better idea when we see. Yeah, 2.5 seconds. Yeah, you're right. So gained a decent amount of time there. That is GT4 in front of them. That is one of. I think that might be Aidan Oak in the Alpine. As Javier, speechless with that move from Chameau, almost killed the GT4 leader. It was very, very close indeed. Luckily, no GT4s were hurt in the filming of that move.
Yes, that was a bit of a mistake with that late break, but it was probably the best move he could have made by turning in there.
It's tough, isn't it?
It's a split-second reaction that you've got to make when you realise you've cocked up.
Yeah. You've got to either just got to go for it and try and get through the gaps, or if you're lucky enough, you get the chance to go wide, don't you? Stop go penalty for Tomlinson, who's down into P16 and will be further down as a result. Daniel Tomlinson, very unfortunate. and 190. Who's car 119? Luke Sherlock in the GT4. So not having the best race means still very close. This is the battle that we were seeing a few moments ago, I believe. Might not be the same three, but it's definitely 3 cars, including Luke Sherlock, which we saw a minute ago. He's got a drive-through though, so he's presumably not sped by as much. So I can see Dan Hearn in the pits now, leading the GT4 class. That will promote Aidan Oak into the lead of the GT4 class, and then that'll be him and Plaza battling again, you would think, for the lead of that one once Oak serves his pit stop.
Keep an eye on Plaza and see where he ends up, see whether there's a position change, still close, or big gap like Miles and Zlatovic.
Yeah, just having a quick look to see what the lap times are. I mean, it's difficult to say. It was a 2:22 for Plaza on the last lap, a 2:23 for Hearn on that one. So that suggests that Plaza probably did pit on the last lap, in fairness. As you see, there's Johnny Seville coming past.
Yeah, just checking the pit stops between the leaders as well. Zildzovic had a 34-second stop and Dixon had a 33-second stop.
So
and
presumably
time in pits was 2 seconds between them as well.
Yeah,
so
that's
that gap
got
that
the time
happened,
from.
yeah, that gap that we saw was just all time in the pits.
Yeah, so it's either going to be a caution on the brakes going into the pits, or it's going to be that classic move where you don't quite line up the car in the grid box properly, and then it does that thing where it puts you up on the jacks, and it puts you down, and then it moves you around, and then it puts you up, and you think, man, for goodness sake, like surely my pit crew are clever enough to be able to move with the punches and just put you up on a jack anywhere. But
so 2 interesting things to note now. Dehearn is a 1.6 second gap to Plaza, so that's worked out nicely for him. And Miles Dixon is in 6th.
Oh yeah, Kuplan and Zildzovic and Austin. So Kuplan, use your words. There must have been a mistake there for Miles Dixon. His last lap was a 3:15. That was his out lap, and yeah, he did his final sector was 9 seconds slower than that of Leighton Austin and Alan Zildzovic. So he must have had some sort of error in the final sector of the lap.
Yeah,
presumably some sort of spin.
Yeah, nothing's come up on the contact sheet, which is just shows up if there's a significant amount of contact that the game sends a message to the app that I'm using. So must have been a bit of a spin there, fresh cold tyres, pushing too hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Suggestions from Javier in the chat. I mean, I'm insinuating, but I'm getting the impression that Carlos Plaza may have taken tyres in the last in
his
that pit
stop was 32 seconds and Hearn's was 27.
There you go. So yeah, it looks like anyone above 30 has either taken tyres or fixed any damage potentially.
Yes, and there's very possible a slight bit of damage on Plaza's car because there was a tiny little bit of a little bonk from Samoa's earlier on.
Yeah, there was, to be fair. That's a very good point. As Mr. Cameron comes out of the pit lane any moment now. Colin Cameron, I was about to call him Charlie Cameron, but I'm pretty sure you'd have told me if that was wrong. Being a friend of yours.
Yes, probably.
Yes, Charlie took tyres, confirmed in the chat from Javier, which, yeah, does make complete sense. Like you say, anything could have sort of plus 30 seconds. You're expecting tyres to have been taken. So that's going to be interesting towards the back end, if not over the next couple of laps. In fact, I'm looking at the gap, I can see it on the timing tower, very much closer than they were before. So Dan going to have to be very careful and very astute to hold on to this class lead.
The gap has already shrunk a second within that last lap.
Yeah, so it's almost inevitable that Plaza is going to get the move done and get himself back up into the lead of the GT4 class and potentially get himself 2 wins from 2 in the first round of this oNiD Racing Multiclass World Championship, or World Cup rather.
Plenty more races to go, and if they're as exciting as this, then you're really going to miss out on your holiday.
I know I am, aren't I? I'm going to have to make sure on the Sunday nights I tune in from my villa in Spain and keep an eye out and see what's going on, and comment all nice things about everybody in the chat as well.
Also, from what I can see, this is the only within a second gap at the moment, apart from this one that just formed between Hunt and that looks like Deutsch up ahead.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think Deutsch just came out of the pit lane. I saw him serve his pit stop about 30 seconds ago. So it does look like, I think you're right, that will have been the serving of the pit stop, and coming back out into the pit, into the race. He's got that Spitfire oNiD livery, which actually looks really, really nice. Very good work indeed. Jack Watson, one of only a handful of drivers who hasn't served their pit stop. I can see Aidan Oak still yet to serve his pit stop as well, which means he's currently leading the GT4 class as a result. And Elvin Blomqvist, you can see on the screen at the moment. I mean, he is, sadly to say, a little bit further adrift of pretty much everybody else on track, but still running around, still yet to serve his pit stop. So that gap is only going to increase, sadly, for him.
Also got Chatburn catching up to Watson, who hasn't taken his stop, as you have previously mentioned.
Yeah, we'll see how.
Bit of a. Please let me through. I don't have to, but please.
Yeah, you're going to see how Watson elects to defend, if at all, here, won't you? Because looks side by side. Sensible move, is it? Or no, he's going to hold on to the position. Is he going to get around the outside? Is Chatburn? No, gets the cut back. That should be move done now. Watson goes very, very wide coming out of turn 14. And as a result, Chatburn does get himself back up position and past the aforementioned Watson. Still yet to pit in this one with just over 20 minutes to go.
Exciting stuff in this race. It's
Absolutely.
quite some down.
Yeah, Chatburn nearly going right into the back of a GT4. There is Watson. I think that was him going into the pit lane. Here is Dan Hearn. He's got Colin Cameron. I think that is, you would know because it's your livery. I think pretty sure that's him. Going past him there, and it does look like he has lost that position to Carlos Plaza. So that is a change for position in the net lead of the GT4 class. Not the official lead yet, because the previously mentioned Aidan Oak in the 42 Alpine, you can see just above them in P27 on the track at the moment. Still yet to serve that mandatory pit stop. And a good evening in the chat to Netraxa, I want to say. Do you know who that is? You got a real name translation for me?
That one I do not know.
Oh, well, evening to Netraxa. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it. And Ryan J. Smith mentioning he's waiting for the Maserati tyres to explode. The drivers are struggling on them during quali, which rather appropriately brings us to that of Daniel Lindblom in one of the two Maseratis on the grid this evening. The other one being Smith down in P39. No exploding tyres just as yet, but still, 20 minutes for us to be proven wrong.
Let's get a bit of an onboard on this beast of a GT4.
Yeah, it's one of those where it just sounds amazing. I mean, I say that, I can't ask it. Ben Asker is Netraxa, apparently, if that means anything more to you than it does to me. It certainly doesn't to me, Ben. I do apologise. I'm sure I'll do my best to remember it over time.
I have seen that name before, yes.
So I've just realised you've gone onto the onboard of the Maserati and we've talked way through it.
It's a bit quiet, so.
I mean, it's completely nothing for me. I can't hear it because,
I was
these sorts of things. You never hear them, sadly. But
I was fiddling with some audio settings to try and balance the onboard sound to the external cams, but it seems this one's a bit quieter because I was balancing it to the sound of the Ferrari, which is a little bit louder.
We are checking.
We are looking. Pumpkin Deutsch, fight.
Yeah. Box for enters. Oh, it's a move around the outside. Oh, this is close. Deutsch trying to hold on. T90 going into the final corner. Sean Hunt going to try and go for the move. Goes for the switchback. He's going to try and get that move done into the first corner. But bit of contact between them there. Either that or it looked like it might have just been a really kind of aggressive move out of the way. Although I did think I just saw some flashing there. Is Hunt going to try and make the move up into turn one? Is it going to be last of the late breakers? Deutsch, rather sensibly, you would think, just kind of covers the inside line. As Mr. Bain is in the chat and says the sound is good.
Very good.
Very good.
At least to my ears, the onboard of the Maserati was just a bit faint.
It's fine. I'll absolutely trust you. Look, if there's anything a YouTube chat is good for, it's telling you when something's wrong.
Oh,
and
yes.
We've not had it, so I think we're okay.
I needed them 2-3 weeks ago when I was doing an AM stream. I didn't realise I was doing the AM stream, so I set it all very quickly. I was with Adam Ely, and for the first 5 or so minutes of the stream, he was completely silent. So he did the introduction, started mentioning things, and I started talking as well, and then everyone was like, "Why are you talking to yourself, Trinket?"
How many drive-throughs says
Oh,
Mr. Bass? It's been,
several.
what, 4 drive-throughs at least. I remember the good times of when there used to be a drive-through counter, as we see Daniel Tomlinson in the Haribo esports car, deciding to spin around, deciding to be collected by a Rogue GT4 there as well, by the looks of it. That was Daniel Lindblom behind in the background of that replay. I wonder if that suggests it would have been either Ian Hall or Marco L, who's gotten caught up in that. Ian Hall, of course,
I didn't get
the QRT esports car.
Didn't get a very good look at it, but that's one thing you've got to really pay attention to is when you go on the outside of a GT4. Because I've had this plenty of times when I'm in a GT4 and a GT3's decided to go around the outside of me in a corner. It's like, I'm starting to understeer. I can't turn anymore.
Yeah, I'm already at 720 degrees of rotation. This car's not going to go any further to whichever direction I'm turning it to. Just don't blame me.
It's all a bit risky and hoopla getting around, but there's a lot of considerations to take in when you're lapping a GT4 and also being lapped by a GT3.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said before, it's not just a knack being able to be a GT4 in this kind of race and being able to minimise disturbance when you're being overtaken. It's also important as a GT3 to know how to do it without losing yourself too much time as well. And as well as very important, not pissing off the GT4 cars, because it's quite easy to do from experience. I've been that person many times. And for those GT4s I have annoyed, I apologise, as Colin Cameron gets the move done on Girton there, puts himself up into P12, or I think it will be P12 when it eventually decides to update itself in the timing tower on the left-hand side. I'm going by the gap between the two of them when they went through the split time anyway, so let's assume P12.
It's P12 now. Gap is now up to 0.7 seconds behind. 0.8, 0.9. It's going up. So definitely move complete.
Yeah, good move on Colin on Thibaut Girton. They just did what 99% of people have tried to do throughout the race so far, and try and get that move done into the tight turn 12. But a lot of people not really been able to get the braking zone right, have they? Or maybe just not had that. It's not necessarily confidence, but kind of optimism that they're going to get the move done. A lot of people just backed out in the braking zone. So
it's not the easiest one to get, especially if you're offline. Just a little bit too late on that brake and you miss the apex and you can't hook in anymore, and off you go, flying off way wide.
We've definitely seen that a few times.
Yes, we have.
Seen a lot of people going very deep. We talked about there being. That was all of us. I felt like I was listening to ASMR then. That was very, very strange indeed. But yeah, Yurin Yongan, Alex Shahabi, and who's it? Adam Gardner, is it? I think is involved, and a Rogue GT4 for good measure. Oh, it's a big move from Yongan. Goes up the inside.
I believe.
I mean, there's
what I said has just happened.
I was going to say we've basically just tempted fate completely. Shahabi somehow has lost quite a bit of time to Gardner there in the background. And Yongan just decided that corner didn't fancy existing. That apex does not exist. It was in his mind there, I think, it felt like.
Yep. Literally willed my words into existence. He was offline, missed a braking point ever so slightly, couldn't get the line right, and just flew off. It's exactly how it goes.
Yeah. It's not the curse of the commentator. I'm trying to think of what it would be. There'll be the premonition of the commentator almost to an extent. It doesn't really have the same ring to it. But
I guess don't mess with me or I'll start talking bad about your car.
Yeah, you're gonna miss the apex in a second.
It's caught up to his G-scrub, general scrub.
Got some very good pace. As Cameron in the second stint of the race, he's driving pretty close to his fastest laps of the race so far. In fact, his best is a 2:08.4. His last lap was quicker, but I believe that would have been invalid because it's not actually classed as such.
2:08.2 though.
Yeah, very quick indeed. As we see Zildzovic leading the way again. Oh, Johnny Seville's gone off.
Collision with Tut Gibson possibly, because he was also yellow flagged. A quick replay on that one.
Yeah, let's see what happens. Coming up to the first corner, is it Tut Gibson going to give him a bit of a nudge at the inside? Oh yeah,
just had to brake to avoid. I think that was Marco L. In the McLaren.
Yeah, I was going to say, hard to avoid that, wasn't it? Like you say, that's the peril of the GT4s. despite the fact there is multiple lines through that first corner, it's very difficult to get it right. Luckily for Johnny Seville, though, he's managed to catch right back up to the back of Tuck Gibson very quickly, gets past the aforementioned Marco L without any issue on this occasion, and that is, I believe that is Daniel Tomlinson in the background. However, he is right the way down because he, of course, mentioned earlier, had a stop-go 30 penalty, so he is a lap down on these guys
as well.
Yeah, not quite what he would have wanted after a very good showing, of course, in the first round last week. P3 in class.
There's a whole lot of cars here now.
Maybe a P3 in this one. It's Colin Cameron. A lot of flashing coming through. Colin Cameron is all over the back of a general scrub. Is he going to get the inside into turn 11? Or just about tries it. Dips out of it again. You've got Thibaut Gertens coming in for the fight now as well. That is Sam Page, I believe.
That is indeed.
Who is a lap down. So he's not going to be looking at making any on-track moves in this one. But this is the fight between the two Ferraris. Gerten and Cameron are all over each other once more. Will Cameron hold to the inside? Will he try and cut the defensive line? Kind of does. Didn't really need to, though, because Gerten weirdly just decided he didn't want to make the move. It felt like that.
Yes, sometimes it's just the better thing not to put yourself offline and mess up your own time by doing it. You can always fight back a position if you've got the pace.
Absolutely. Live to fight another day.
Yes. Don't take yourself out too early. Well, too late, rather.
No, exactly what we've got.
11 three-way here. Shahabi, Young and Anne Marissa. A lot of action in the closing minutes now.
Yeah, it's all kind of closing up a bit, isn't it? I suppose that's what happens. I mean, I think everyone pretty much, unless I'm mistaken, has served all their pit stops. Served their pit stop now. So everyone here on pace alone. That's Ressar trying to go round the outside. He's got the Maserati in company for there as well. Oh. Jongen just about managing to hold on and retain or maintain that position, I should say. He's not retaining something that was already his, and he's going to try and keep the pressure on Shahabi in front. I mean, these guys have been almost nose to tail for about 4 or 5 laps now, and showing how you can ride very closely towards one another whilst keeping yourselves very clean at the same time, which is very good to see.
It's wonderful to see. Let's have a quick look on the GT4 lead. We've actually got Oak coming into the pits to serve his pit stop, who is the last one to do their pit stop, and Plaza takes the lead now, with Hearn still 2.5 seconds back, so hasn't lost too much time.
Yeah, he's holding the gap relatively well, which is nice to see. I mean, it's probably not going to be enough for him to mount a charge, potentially, as Plaza's new tyres drift off a little bit. But unfortunately, yeah, not really going to be enough for him to mount any form of charge. The good thing for him, though, is that Martin Thorpe appears to be a rather large gap back behind, and has Peter Jelinek for company behind him, battling for the final spot on the GT4 podium as well. So Dan Hearn, realistically, after a solid showing last time out, 6th place in class at Watkins Glen in the first round, he'll be quite pleased, I think, I'm sure, just to get a solid 2nd place in the books, as we see Seddon, Tuck Gibson and Johnny Seville back together again. This has been a smooth position because Seville now in front. He's going to go for a move into the final corner. Goes up the inside. It's a lovely camera angle on that interior of the pit lane. See whether he can get it. No, just elects to drop back inside. I thought he would have had enough of a run there.
Yeah, definitely got alongside, and Seville gave him the room, but I don't think he got the turn in just right. Couldn't get the power down enough and just tucked back in. That Maserati gets a little bit loose on the sausages on the outside there.
Goodness me, that's code brown there for Tuck Gibson, if ever I've seen one. Question from Ryan Smith in the chat. I'm not sure how we're going to answer this one. I think it's something the drivers can only confirm themselves, but it says, feels like the front runners are much more impatient getting past the back markers this week. Any ideas why?
I think that's just something that just regularly happens. It's definitely something I notice all the time. It's definitely nothing to do with this week on its own. But it definitely does feel like they are in a massive hurry to get through, as Aidan Chapbone gets a drive through for track limits. Did he get one at the beginning of the race? Is that his second?
I think that's his second. I'm pretty sure he's got 2 now. 95% sure he's already had one. It was definitely Tomlinson. He had one. He got the Stock Go 30 as well. Car number 12, which was Ben P, he had a drive through, I believe. And I think Chapbone has 2 as well, I believe. Who knows? It's a shame you can't get this information, isn't it? It'd be lovely if that was exposed. But sadly, not the case. Can't see any black and white
Need a whole
flags.
team of people just logging and feeding information.
Yeah,
Just get Stevie Bain, just instead of doing any comms, just track penalties.
Constantly watching drive-throughs. That is definitely the second drive-through penalty for Ben P.
Oh,
And
yeah,
you can
he
see
just
there,
got one too. I didn't
15th
see
and
that.
17th both. Yeah, it literally just popped up. Going back to what Ryan said as well, I would argue that it's probably the darkness probably had an impact as well. Yes, there are loads of lights on. If all 42 cars are on in the race, but it's never the easiest thing to manage when you can see all these different cars, because unless you're a knowledgeable guy or girl, to be fair, you're not going to know whose lights are whose, are you? As we see, Rassar trying to go up the inside. Jongen goes round, trying to hold a position.
At the moment I switched to it, they were 3 wide going into that turn 1 there.
Yeah, it's very, very close indeed. This is, I mean, this kind of battling is also going to have an impact on answering that question as well from Ryan Smith, because you are naturally in this position going to want to try and get past the slower cars as quickly as you possibly can, so as not to impact yourself. And we're checking. The gap at the top between Zildjić and Austin down to 1.9 seconds now. Austin's gaining 2 seconds a lap on the last lap alone.
It just says 2.4 now.
And now, yeah, immediately ruined my point. Thanks, Leighton, for that.
Zildjivic's last lap was a 2:08.3 and Austin's was a 2:06.4.
Yeah, so starting to close that gap down. I mean, 6.5 minutes left. There's still more than enough time to get a potential move for the lead done. Here is Colin Cameron all over the back of Scrub still not managed to make that move stick.
And that is two triple fights going on track right now. I'm just bouncing between them.
I was going to say, that's Girton in the background, as well as Jürgelis pits, interestingly, with no form of penalty. So wondering why that would be the case.
Check on their car.
Must have maybe not filled up enough fuel.
Yeah, that could be that. Don't see any damage on the car. It's possible that they've returned to garage after something happened, or have come in for fuel. As Colin Cameron does get past, we miss it. We can play a replay.
Here we go. Is this going down into turn 11, I think? Gets on the late brakes. Really, really nice clean move there. Gets the move done and blocks off any chance of the cutback from Scrub as well. That is...
And that is the
I know you're biased. I know you're probably very biased, but that was a very, very nice move indeed from Colin Cameron there.
Oh yes, I know Colin, and I know he can be quick, but most importantly, especially with me, is I care more about being clean.
Very nice. His gap at the top now down into less than a second, so half a second pretty much separates Zildjić and Austin in lead of this one. So we can see their pit window now closed, so fortunately everyone has made their pit stops complete, which is always a good thing, and you can see why Zildjić is getting caught up and falling back into the clutches of Austin, because he's getting caught up in quite a bit of traffic. He was 2 seconds slower in the final sector on the last lap. That's where most of that time has gone to. And this is going to give us a nice, spicy ending towards this one. That is the back marker of the car number 7, car P17, which is Hunt. It's very, very close. Hunt really needs to kind of get out of the way a bit and just gets a bit of a hip check from Austin. It felt to me like Hunt really kind of just needed to jump out of the way a little bit there. You can see who they are on your relative.
Yeah,
just let them carry on.
Already alongside in the corner, it's just smarter to go wide and tuck in.
Exactly, yeah, should have just let them go, but no matter. Fortunately, it hasn't had an impact on the fight for the lead. It's kept them nice and close as a result. What's that? That's about 0.2 of a second. I know you've got the live gap on your screen, but I'm assuming that's probably about 2 or 3 tenths.
It's about
splitting these two at the moment
now. We can move down to the triple battle we were watching earlier with Shahabi, Jongen, Racer. It's still pretty close. A second between Jongen and Shahabi, and 0.7 between Jongen and Racer. Also got Jonathan Seville, 0.6 seconds behind Tut Gibson. They traded places a few times. Colin Cameron and Thibaut Burton are about a second apart now. Scrub has fallen behind Thibaut, so Thibaut managed to get past Scrub as well. And that's most of the action on track at the moment.
You say most of the action. There's about 4 or 5 battles that you've called out there, to be fair.
Yeah,
very much glad it's you managing the cameras rather than me at the moment. Oh, there's a GT4 car. There's a Camaro in there as well. Goodness me. Woo.
Splitting hairs there.
Oh, I felt like I had a Code Brown moment looking at what Leighton Austin had to deal with there. I mean, you've got to take a moment to feel for the Chevy as well. I mean, that is, when you've got the two fastest cars on track at the moment going round you, one either side, that's enough to make the hairs on your neck go up a little bit, I would think.
Yeah. But good that it's staying clean. I haven't seen too much GT4 bullying in this race.
No, it's been relatively good. I think we've seen a few bits here and there, haven't we? A couple of little knocks for a few of them. Of course, we nearly saw, I can't remember who it was, one of the, I think it might be Simoesh, who went obviously up the inside into turn 11 and nearly took out Carlos Plaza, which, looking back, explains why there was some comments from Javier in the chat for being an avid supporter.
Blancas did not take their stop.
Oh dear. What's that going to be? That's a 90-second penalty at the end, I believe. I mean, sadly, not that it's going to matter hugely for him because he is about a lap or two behind everyone else. In fact, it's a lap behind Norman Bruce ahead of him. So no matter what the penalty is, it's still going to put him back and at the bottom
Just
of
having
the
a look
grid.
at some of the battles on track before the final lap, before we look at the leaders fight it out. Ian Hall
there you
makes
go,
it
Ian
past
Hall.
marker L there.
Just getting past. Good move from him into the first corner.
There's a
Jelinek
and Falk that just traded as well.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Just spotted Jelinek was behind him, and then obviously, like anything, noticed that they were on there as well.
Got Hibibovic and Sherlock side by side going down the straight as well.
And there is your lead battle in the background.
There.
Well, he's not getting him through easily, is he? Is Hibibovic in that DuPont Racing car? Jongen. Ressart just dropped off at the back a little bit there, isn't he? And you can see Girton, according to Timing Tower, catching up to Colin Cameron, who is still very much on the back of Girton. In fact, no, sorry, my apologies. Johnny Seville is behind Tuck Gibson. There's a gap then back to
the gaps are all just over a second now, including between Zildzovic and Austin. It's a 1.3 second gap.
Yeah, perfect timing for Zildzovic to get a bit of a gap forming. It wasn't actually anything on the last lap. It's all been on this lap. So I don't know whether there's no traffic near them. So there's nothing that would assume that Austin was caught up in any GT4s or anything. Just maybe a bit of a mistake going through the S's. You see a car just dropping off to the left-hand side, getting out of the way. So sensible indeed. You see, look at that gaggle of cars in the background.
Yeah.
Goodness me. There's all sorts of people caught up in there, but it looks like as we go into the final final 7 or 8 corners of this lap, barring any mistakes, Zildzovic is going to look like he's going to take the win in this one. Again, barring any miracle work from Leighton Austin, gets past that GT4 as there's Jurgelis
drive through right at the end.
I mean, that's not what you want. You can't serve it. You know you're going to have it happen. There we go. There is the time finish. So this will definitely be the final lap, as we previously already figured out anyway.
But a few position changes there. I think Hunt just dropped 2 positions.
Did indeed by the looks of it. Yeah, it's very close for those guys at the back end of that as well. Hopefully we'll get a chance to see some of that before everyone comes around the finish. But Zildzovic comes through the final couple of corners, turn 19 and down up the little hill towards the final corner of this one. He is going to take the win here in the second round of the oNiD Racing Multiclass World Cup here at Circuit of the Americas, ahead of Leighton Austin in second place for Pole Sim Sport. Miles Dixon will make it a Pole Sim Sport 2-3, and Ash Coupland will make it a Pole Sim Sport 2-3-4. Importantly, Zildzovic will take the AM class victory, and Austin will take the Pro class victory. And this man, Carlos Plaza, who had to make it work in the second stint of the race, changed for tyres halfway through, got past Dan Hearn in the second stint of the race, makes it 2 in a row for Carlos Plaza. He comes home first in class through a couple of seconds ahead of Dan Hearn. We've got a couple of battles formulating at the back end of this one. You see General Scrub just on the back almost of Thibaut Girton. Colin Cameron, good friend of yours, has managed to make a little bit of a gap for himself, luckily, which is very fortunate indeed. You see Ian Hall has lost the position to Marco L again. I believe they were the other way around a minute ago.
They were indeed, but still right on each other, and this is where it all matters, the last sector of the race.
Absolutely. We'll see whether Ian can make the move down the inside into turn 12, or he's going to have any other chance to do it. The yellow flag ahead of them. There's a 30-second penalty for Jurgelis. Obviously, that's his drive-through penalty that hasn't been served, so that will drop him back at least to 23rd, possibly behind Jack Watson as well, although actually looking at the gaps between them, probably not. Ian Hall still trying to get that move done. He's just a bit too far off at the moment, though. And realistically, there's not many more opportunities he's got barring the final corner to get a move done. Marco L, back end of that McLaren 570S, goes a little bit swiggly coming out of turn 14. Come through that triple right-hander. It really looks like that Marco L has probably got this one wrapped up for what is going to be 7th in class. Very close battle between these two. And Ian Hall, I'm sure Tricky's probably thinking, why had the move done a minute ago? I should be ahead of this guy, but instead I'm going to finish across the line behind him.
Some great close fighting between the two of them, though. As Daniel Rimblom rounds out the race by being the last person to cross the line and almost missing the corner entirely.
I wonder if he knew, because I wonder if he
short.
knew that was the final. He was the final car to cross the line, because he went for that. I know it's interesting, that very big kind of back end, stick it out, get the back end going. All good fun to do that as well. As Martin Reinhardt's the only driver not to finish in there. Yeah, like you saw there, the 132nd penalty for the last man on the track, which was Elvin Brumfist, serve his pit stop.
Indeed. That was a great race.
Oh, that was good. Yeah, it was good fun. Not the worst way to start off the first race of my oNiD racing commentary career. It's been an absolute pleasure. I mean, there's action pretty much all the way up and down. To be fair, I'm much more pleased that you were on the comms, on the cameras rather than myself, because I know how difficult it is to keep an eye on everything going around you. But covered everything we needed. So thank you very much indeed.
Yep, just going to switch to the hold screen. I'm going to bring up the highlights for everyone to watch while we close off the stream.
Lovely stuff. Yeah, I mean, like I say, fantastic result from Zildzovic in the end, of course, taking the AM class victory. I mean, finishing ahead of all the pros as well, that is not something to be sniffed at. And yeah, Leighton Austin taking the win in the pro class in the end. So fantastic work from both of those two. Paul Simsport will be very happy, I'm sure, taking a 2-3-4. Not that there's any team points on offer, but nice for the social. I'm sure that you see that start from Johnny Seville was quite something. That Jag very, very quick off the line, and this is the point where certain Tuck Gibson just gets caught. I think that's by the Ferrari of Leighton Austin, it looked like. So maybe think that Tuck Gibson was up in 5th before the start. Didn't necessarily have the rub of the green in the end, but coming back to 9th position, considering he was pretty much at the back, is pretty impressive, you would say.
Yeah, it's all very impressive. There was quite a few little spins and accidents that sent some people far down, and they worked their way back up quite handily.
Absolutely, but yeah, good race all in all. Fantastic showing for the second round of this one. Any final thoughts before we wrap up, before we head over to the next round, which of course is going to be at, he checks his notes because he's already forgotten where it's going to be, wondering if someone's going to get in there before me. Suzuka. Next week, 60 minutes. Suzuka, the land of the rising sun. Very good one to watch, I'm sure that will be. Again, multi-class there, going to be an interesting facet, because not known for a lot of easy places to overtake a slower car, you would argue.
There's quite a lot of narrow areas on that track. But definitely be interesting to see. Yeah. I had great fun watching this week. Last week was a bit of a mess at the start. The rest of the race was great. The second race attempt, let's just say. So it's been some exciting stuff, and I'm looking forward to more. A lot of great fights going on all around the track. It's not just the leaders having a battle, it's the whole field.
Yeah, absolutely. Beauty of having a nice big grid and a lot of very competitive people on it as well. Trinket, thank you so much for looking after all the cameras, Steve. You've done a fantastic job, like I say. Broadcast looking on point as per usual. To those of you who've been in the chat all evening, thank you so much for sticking around and watching. If you haven't done already, make sure that big thumbs up on the screen is nice and blue for us, so you've hit it, and make sure you've hit that subscribe button as well, because I can speak on behalf of everybody else. There is absolutely tons of content coming out on the oNiD Racing YouTube channel over the next week or so, between Trinket, you and I coming back, as we mentioned, for Suzuka next week.
And I think we'll leave it there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you again very soon. Goodbye.
Thank you and goodbye.